Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is deadline day. We are currently at the time of recording around about 13 hours away from the transfer window slamming shut, as people like to say. 11 p.m. is the deadline tonight, and it looks like it could be a busy day for Everton Football Club. I say could because we've witnessed many a deadline days in the past where Everton have looked like they could be doing a lot of business in terms of incomings and outgoings, and actually nothing has happened, and we've all been sat there at the end of it thinking, what a waste of time that was. But it doesn't look like that is going to be the case with today's deadline. We know Everton need to strengthen. We've spoken about right wingers. We've spoken about creative midfielders, centre-backs, left-backs. There are a number of positions that Everton still could do with strengthening over the next 13 hours or so. Do I expect Everton to strengthen in every position? No. But do I expect Everton to go out and at least get one or two players in order to bolster this squad, especially given a lot of the rumours surrounding players that could leave the football club? Yes, I do. This is the morning update. Every deadline day, we like to do a couple of updates throughout the day, discussing all of the latest news. We do one in the morning. We usually do one around about afternoonish, and then we'll do one in the evening as well. And of course, any news that breaks in between them, we will cover as well. We have had quite a significant update in the last few hours or so regarding Alex Iwobi's future. We've also had a significant update regarding Tom Cannon and Demarai Gray as well. Not much in terms of incomings at this moment, but I'm sure as the day goes on and as sort of money starts to free up a little bit, for example, if Alex Iwobi leaves the football club and that frees up the 15-20 million that could bring in, rumours of Tom Cannon leaving for around £7.5 million, that would be money coming in, Demarai Gray as well. So we will probably see the rumours regarding incoming players a little bit later on today. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about potential outgoings. So according to Dom Smith, who is a journalist currently working at the Evening Standard, he has said around about 15 minutes ago that Alex Iwobi is set to join Fulham today in a £20 million deal. Sky Sports also reported earlier on this morning that Alex Iwobi is close to joining Fulham. That was reported by Alan Myers. It was also reported by James Lua at Sky Sports News as well. So a lot of talk around Alex Iwobi at the moment. We obviously spoke about him in yesterday's video. According to various different sources and journalists across social media as well, Alex Iwobi is now on standby to travel to London to undergo a medical for Fulham should an agreement be reached between the two clubs. Personal terms are now completed. So it pretty much seems like the second there is an agreement reached between Everton and Fulham, this deal will be concluded fairly quickly. Now, obviously, the main, part of a transfer, the main factor of any football transfer is an agreement between the two clubs that are involved in this. And in Alex Iwobi's case, there has not yet been an agreement between Everton and Fulham. There are reports that there has been a £15 to £20 million bid tabled. There's reports that it will be £20 million plus add-ons. As I said, there's a lot of different things floating around the social media hemisphere at the moment regarding Alex Iwobi and a potential move away from Everton Football Club. But like I've just said, a lot of stuff regarding a fee not being quite agreed yet. Alex Iwobi seemingly wants to move. We spoke yesterday about Alex Iwobi's desire to actually leave Everton Football Club and how, regardless of how important he may be to Everton, regardless of his creativity, regardless of his, his chance creation stats, we're ultimately what we've got on our hands is a player that A, doesn't want to play for the football club and therefore will not sign a new contract, and B, somebody who's out of contract in 10 months' time, and ultimately if he's not going to sign a new deal, he will end up walking for free next summer anyway. So if Everton can get around £20 million for him, then that would be a significant amount of money and would actually be, the right thing to do for the business. In terms of it being the right thing to do for the football team, that will obviously depend on whether or not we can get a replacement in over the next 13 hours or so if Alex Iwobi is to leave the football club today. There's a lot of rumours regarding players that we're interested in, Wilfred Gnonto being one of them. We'll speak about him in a moment. But like I said, the Alex Iwobi situation seems to be one that is constantly changing in regards to, whether or not he will leave the football club. It seems like Alex has made his decision. It seems like he wants to go. It seems like Everton have given permission to travel to complete a medical. However, there is now a sort of fork in the road when an agreement needs to be reached between the two clubs over the transfer fee. Iwobi apparently has already agreed personal terms with the London club, so there will be no issue with that whatsoever. And like I said yesterday, for me, I understand the role that Alex Iwobi plays in this team. I get that creatively he's one of our better players. I get that, in terms of chance creation and involvement in goals, we will need to replace him. And ultimately, it is a massive risk to lose one of your most creative players on deadline day, because ultimately there's no guarantee you're going to be able to replace that. But business-wise, £20 million. Again, there's an argument to be had that he hasn't, ultimately been what we expected from him. As an Everton player, he hasn't reached those heights. He hasn't reached the level of what his original price tag would have suggested. We already know he doesn't score enough goals. We already know he probably doesn't get enough assists. The assists thing, he's got an argument for. He could say, well, I create the chances. It's not my fault that people don't finish them. The goals thing is completely his responsibility. He simply doesn't score enough goals. And for a player with 10 months left on a contract with no desire to sign a new one, £20 million wouldn't be the worst deal in the world. But as I said, Everton need to be really careful about making a business decision, but making sure it makes footballing sense as well, and Everton need to be able to go out and replace Alex Iwobi. So I'm sure we will hear an awful lot more about this situation in the next few hours or so. We'll probably do a live stream update at around about 4 o'clock, and I'm sure, with 6 hours to go until 4 o'clock, I'm sure we'll have heard an update on this one. But as it stands, Alex Iwobi, according to different rumours, Dom Smith reporting that Alex Iwobi is set to join Fulham in a £20 million deal. However, other reports close to the club are suggesting that there has not yet been an agreement reached, and if there is an agreement reached, then this deal should be concluded fairly quickly. I'm sure there will be an agreement reached over the next few hours or so for this transfer, because Everton will want to bring players in, and if they need money to be able to do that, then allowing Alex Iwobi to leave is obviously the way to do that. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on the Alex Iwobi situation. As I said, I'm not going to talk too much about him in terms of what he brings, because we did that yesterday, but this is certainly one that looks like it could progress quite significantly over the next few hours. On to Tom Cannon now, according to Paddy Boylan, who obviously works for The Athletic, very close to Everton Football Club, and of course one of the most reliable sources of transfer information out there. Paddy has reported that Tom Cannon is close to joining Leicester City for a fee of around £7.5 million and has been given permission to undergo his Leicester medical. Obviously, with the Tom Cannon situation, I always expected him to leave the football club. I didn't expect him to leave on a permanent move, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Obviously, I think the club ideally would have preferred a loan deal for him. Had he have gone to the Championship, played the season there on loan, come back, with that experience and with that, with obviously that game time under his belt, then we could have assessed where he was, at the beginning of next season in terms of whether or not he's ready to become a Premier League player. However, given Everton's financial situation, I think a bit similar to the Ellis Sims situation, are Everton really in a position to turn down £7.5 million for a player that at this moment they, or certainly the manager, does not deem good enough to be a Premier League player? Now, Tom is only young, so, he's significantly younger than what Ellis Sims was, so it's not a case of, he's 23 years old and he's not good enough, so he never will be good enough. Tom is only 20 years old, so he's obviously got a lot of, a lot of time to improve and a lot of time to obviously work on those things he needs to improve on, and he may well be good enough to be a Premier League footballer in 2 or 3 years' time. However, that would be a risk to turn down that money, and on the basis that the club assume that he will be good enough to be a Premier League player in the next couple of years. £7.5 million is a significant amount of money for the position that Everton are in, for a player that ultimately will have no part to play this season. Either way, whether or not he went on a permanent or not, he would either go on loan or he would probably end up just sitting on the bench every week and not getting much game time. If you look at the money that Everton could make today, just based upon the rumours that are being floated around, £20 million for Alex Iwobi, £7.5 million for Tom Cannon, and then a reported £10 to £15 million for Demarai Gray. Everton could make £40 million on 3 players today. Now, that being said, Everton would all automatically need to replace 2 of them 3 players. Now, I think you could probably get away with not replacing Tom Cannon, or you could not get away with losing Alex Iwobi and Demarai Gray and not bringing anybody in. For me, I said it yesterday and I'll say it again, I would like us then to go out and buy a right winger and a creative attacking midfield player. Now, whether or not that is likely to happen, we'll wait and see. Reports yesterday suggesting Everton are interested in a creative midfield player and a winger. But if Everton are to lose Alex Iwobi and Demarai Gray, that was what I would expect. But bringing in £40 million will obviously give us a lot more room to wriggle with, and in terms of negotiations with clubs, it will put us in a much better situation as well. So again, I think in an ideal world, in an ideal situation, Everton wouldn't need to sell Tom Cannon and would be able to loan him out and then bring him back and see whether or not he's ready. But we probably don't have that luxury at the moment. And, you know, if somebody is offering £7.5 million for a player that we don't deem ready to play in the Premier League at this current stage, then it's probably a deal that Everton will take. And listen, pardon me, it happens a lot in football nowadays. We've just seen Cole Palmer move from Manchester City to Chelsea for around £40 million. And I'm not comparing the two, but I'm just saying Cole Palmer was a player that, you know, years ago, Manchester City and Pep Guardiola might have said, no, he's not selling, you know, he's going out on loan, and then ultimately he can come back and we'll make a decision on him then. Whereas now they've just gone, well, you know, he would have played for us and he's somebody we would have wanted to keep, but for £40 million, yeah, you can have him. And maybe that's where Everton are at with the Tom Cannon situation, sort of thinking, well, we didn't really want to sell him, but if you're going to give us, you know, £7.5 million for him, then fine, you can have him. So yeah, as I said, we'll wait and see how that one progresses over the next 12 hours or so. In terms of incomings, we haven't had much sort of you know, solid news or any sort of reports of players being close to moves to Everton. However, we have had the report from Sky Sports News over the last hour or so, which states Everton are back in talks with Leeds United for Wilfred Gnonto. Everton have not given up. Now, this is really, really interesting, this, because obviously the original issue with Everton's pursuit of Wilfred Gnonto was we never really had the money that Leeds United wanted in order to sell him. Leeds obviously took a very, very, very sort of solid stance on Wilfred Gnonto and didn't want to lose him whatsoever. However, I do feel like they would have sold if the right amount of money would have came in, and I do feel like they just weren't satisfied with Everton's with Everton's move for him. Now, there is reports around social media today suggesting that Wilfred Gnonto would still be up for the move. Fraser Fletcher, who has been quite a prominent figure with transfer news in this window, he is working for the BBC. He used to work for the BBC. He's an independent correspondent now. He reported yesterday that the door is not closed for Everton and Wilfred Gnonto, as previously reported. Difficult, but Everton likely to ask the question again. Gnonto is still very keen on the move before deadline day. And then an hour ago, Fraser Fletcher reported that Everton and Leeds are back in talks as expected over Wilfred Gnonto. So, again, a couple of reports I've seen on the Gnonto stuff in the last few hours or so. One of them, that one being that Everton and Leeds are back in talks over Wilfred Gnonto. Others being that Everton and Leeds are in talks, but Leeds are adamant that he's not for sale. Well, the two clubs wouldn't be in talks if Leeds were adamant that he wasn't for sale, because it wouldn't be a talk, would it? It would be, he's not for sale, all right, bye. It wouldn't be a talk. The mere fact that, if this is to be believed, the mere fact that Leeds United are willing to engage in talks with Everton states that he is for sale and they will be willing to sell him for the right price and under the right terms. Now, this is a risk for Everton to continue to pursue this player, because ultimately if this doesn't come off, then we look a little bit silly, because we were told last week that he wouldn't be for sale. He was reintegrated back into Leeds' team last week. He's played a couple of games. He scored a couple of goals, I believe. And, you know, as I said, if Everton chase Wilfred Gnonto today, and then he doesn't end up coming to the football club, then we'll all be sat there saying, well, we were told last week he wasn't coming to the football club, so why did we try and go for him again on deadline day when we could have gone for somebody else? Like I said, I don't think that Everton would remain interested in this player, and Everton would reopen talks with Leeds United if there was no way this deal could be done. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. Don't believe everything you hear in terms of managers talking and this, that and the other. these situations can constantly change within football, and the mere fact that Everton are trying to pursue Wilfred Gnonto again tells me that there is a hope that this deal can be done. I'm not saying it will be done. I'm not saying I expect it to be done. I'm saying I don't think the stance of Leeds is he's definitely not for sale. That's it, full stop, is quite accurate. I think they probably would be willing to sell him. Like I said before, maybe Everton bringing in those funds from Alex Iwobi, from Demarai Gray, from Tom Cannon might free up that a little bit more and might make Leeds think, do you know what, maybe we can get a little bit of money out of him here. In terms of Gnonto as a player, my stance is very much the same on him. I think he's a good player. I think he'd improve us. I think he's tricky. I think he's quick. I think he clearly wants to come to the football club. Do I think he's worth £30-odd million? No. He could be worth £30-odd million in the future, but it would be a massive, massive risk for where we are as a football club at the moment. Having said that, we do need a winger, preferably a right winger, but we do need a winger. And, you know, if we are losing Demarai Gray and Alex Iwobi, as I said, we need to replace those players. So we'll wait and see on the Gnonto stuff. I have a suspicious feeling we haven't heard the end of this Gnonto stuff, and I think if it does get done, it will be one of them where we are sitting here at 5-11 still waiting for an announcement. But we'll wait and see on that one. From one Leeds player to another, according to Mail Sport, Everton have made a late move to sign Leeds United's Louis Sinisterra. Now, I believe Burnley had quite a significant bid for Louis Sinisterra turned down yesterday. I think it was within the region of around £20-25 million, which would mean that Everton, of course, would have to pay a lot more money for him than that. Let me just get up the figure. So I can make sure it's accurate. But yeah, again, it's clear that Everton are interested in a number of players within that Leeds United squad. Whether or not any of these deals get done is completely beyond my knowledge. According to Joe Tiffany, who is a Leeds United fan but provides transfer updates, he has stated that Louis Sinisterra's asking price is £40 million and Willy Gnonto's asking price is £35 million. So £40 million they seemingly want for Louis Sinisterra. Again, that isn't coming from a massively reliable journalist. It's just coming from somebody that shares Leeds news on social media. So whether or not that is true, I don't know. But £40 million, he's a good player. He's somebody that I like a lot. He's somebody that I think has got a big, bright future, a lot of potential, quality. Has proven that he can do it in the Premier League. Has looked sharp, in the times that I've seen him play for Leeds United. Again, I just feel like any deal with Leeds United over any player is going to be massively difficult to do, and I do think Everton will end up paying for any of these players, whether it be Gnonto, whether it be Sinisterra, whoever it might be. I have a gut feeling that Everton will end up, overpaying for whoever it is. Just because of Leeds United's situation. They don't want to lose either of these two players. Again, like I said, football is a sport that is constantly changing, and I don't think Leeds United are in a position to absolutely say that they're definitely not for sale, but they will hold out for probably more money than what these players are worth, and it's up to Everton then to determine whether or not that risk is worth taking. As I said, we will have those funds freed up if Alex Iwobi is to leave and if Demarai Gray is to leave, but whether or not we spend it there or whether or not we go, I don't know, maybe to Southampton for Suleiman, Maxwell Cornet has been linked from West Ham as well. We will wait and see, but I would expect one of Maxwell Cornet, Louis Sinisterra, Wilfred Gnonto, or Kamaldeen Suleiman to be an Everton player by the end of today. I just would, because they're the names that keep popping up. It's clear Everton want a winger, and if Everton are to sell Alex Iwobi, which it looks on course to happen, then we would have to bring one of those players in. So we'll wait and see how this one progresses over the coming hours. According to Tazil Loic, who is a journalist for L'Equipe in France, they have reported that Lille are hoping to finalise a loan move for Everton winger Demarai Gray quickly and have sent a paid loan offer for Everton. To Everton. Baffles me, this one. Obviously, the Demarai Gray stuff was first brought to light when there was reports that there was an offer from Saudi Arabia for him, and it become a point where Everton were looking to potentially bring in 15-odd million quid in for the player that cost us £1.5 million or whatever, and that deal for me would have made sense, and ultimately would have been a positive for Everton. Again, Demarai Gray is somebody that scores goals, whether or not we think he's good enough, whether or not we think he's, good enough to play in this Everton side and good enough for what we need. The reality of the situation is he scores goals in the Premier League, and if we are to lose him, then we would have to replace him. So, the reports that he might go to Saudi for £20 million, £25 million, whatever it may be, 15 million quid, made sense. But reports that he could leave the football club on loan are a little bit strange to me. Now, it's very clear that the manager doesn't fancy him. He's been nowhere near the matchday squad at all in the last 3-4 weeks or so. He's fit, so the assumption that he isn't fit is a little bit baffling because he played in the summer for Jamaica and he had no issues there. As this report suggests, Everton may be looking at loaning him out. Now, obviously, if this is a paid loan move and we're going to get 5 million quid for him, then maybe Everton look at it and go, well, do you know what? That's an extra 5 million quid into the pot. He doesn't want to be here. The manager doesn't want him. We'll take it. But I just think it's a bit of a mad situation. I do. And I'm not saying I would be against Demarai Gray leaving the football club, or I think Everton should try and keep him. But if we're not going to get a permanent fee for him, and he's going to go out on loan, and we're going to end up having to cover his wages anyway, then he may as well stay here and have a role in this team. I don't think that will happen because I think the last few weeks have showed that it's very clear the manager doesn't fancy him. It's very clear the player doesn't fancy it. I think he's been asked about twice in a press conference in the last 4 weeks. Now, that might seem, you might sit there and think, well, what's that got to do with anything, Cam? But he was asked about, there was a question asked to Sean Dyche a couple of weeks ago about Demarai Gray, and he said, oh, he's just not fit yet. And then he hasn't been mentioned since. Now, that mightn't seem a big thing, but we're talking about a player that was one of Everton's top goal scorers in the Premier League last season. Somebody that, whether we think he's good enough or not, contributes to goals that have kept us up in the last 2 seasons. And it's almost like he's never been there. He's just disappeared off the face of the earth. So I do think he will leave Everton Football Club. And if you believe this report, it seems like he will leave, whether it be on loan or whether it be in a permanent deal. But again, I expect this situation to significantly, progress over the next few hours or so. According to Liverpool Echo, Everton have held talks with West Ham United yesterday over a deal to take Maxwell Cornet on loan for the rest of the season. Earlier this week, Everton have also made an inquiry to West Ham over striker Danny Ings. I can't see Everton bringing in Danny Ings now that we've signed Beto. Certainly not for the money that West Ham would want for him. I think they signed him for £18 million, a year ago? Less than a year ago. And, ultimately he's had injuries since he's been at West Ham, as he has throughout his entire career. And I think they probably would want to recoup the majority of that money back, which for me, I don't necessarily think is a necessity now that we've brought Beto in. I think we could spend that money elsewhere. I think we could spend that money in other areas on improving the squad. Plus, Danny Ings is, as I said, his age isn't a particularly good age to be spending a lot of money on, and his injury problems are a worry as well. Having said that, he does score every time he plays against Everton, so at least we'd have that, not happening to us. In terms of Maxwell Cornet, again, a lot of reports suggesting that he is sort of the last resort in terms of the wingers that Everton have been linked with. Gnonto, Sinisterra, Sulemana. Cornet seems like the absolute last resort, and given it's deadline day, he may well be the one that we sign, because clubs might look and go, well, we don't want to sell our better players at this stage in the transfer window. But again, we'll wait and see how this one progresses. Mark Douglas did report yesterday that a midfielder and a winger are on Everton's wish list ahead of deadline day. He also reported that Manchester City midfielder Calvin Phillips would be an ambitious target for Director of Football Kevin Thirlwell. Well, if that's the case, then Everton should absolutely be trying to bring him into the football club, because if he is an ambitious target, then we should be trying to bring him into the football club. We have had some breaking news. This is what happens in these deadline day videos. We're constantly having breaking news. According to Phil McNulty, who is a reporter at the BBC, he has reported Fulham have now agreed a deal with Everton for Alex Iwobi, and he will undergo a medical. If that is true, then I absolutely don't see any reason why this deal will not go ahead. I expect Alex Iwobi to leave the football club fairly quickly. And yeah, ignore everything that I'd said previously about a deal not being agreed, because this is what happens on deadline day. Things change, a deal has been agreed, and Alex Iwobi looks set to leave Everton. Jack Talbot reported that Lille want to sign Demarai Gray on loan. However, Everton wants an obligation to buy in the deal. He also reported that Everton are prepared to meet Leeds United's valuation for Wilfred Gnonto, but Leeds are still haggling. signing. And as I've just said, Sky reporting that Alex Iwobi is undergoing his medical at Fulham. Miguel Delaney also reporting that Everton are looking to beat Wolves to the signing of Fulham midfielder Harrison Reed. So a lot of things happening. As I've just said, things change instantly on deadline day. I started the video by saying a deal hasn't been agreed. We're now ending the video with the deal being agreed. So things will change, obviously, over the course of the next few hours or so, and as they do, we will be back with more videos and more content. We'll also be back with the Sheffield United preview, so don't forget to look out for that one. But until then, big thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new as well, and we'll see you later.